My name's Jack, and I'm here to introduce you to the 1988 CRX HF. I've had this piece for about 8 years now. I got it as a roller, and it's been languishing for this entire time, essentially. So I picked it up from a guy for $75, and it had basically it was a full car minus the engine. It did come with the engine and transmission, just not mounted in the car or really assembled in any way. I have since sold the HF transmission, which has some value to it for some people who are doing high mileage, miles per gallon type builds. I have various pieces of the HF engine still. It's got an interesting cylinder head with only 8 valves, where the typical D series cylinder head has 16. But that's neither here nor there. So this car was originally a nice kind of light flaky blue color. It has since been painted at least once. It's got hints of red, blue, a lot of black, but there's also bare metal in certain areas of the car. So may or may not change that in the future. I like sleeper cars, so this has the potential to be a nice little, it looks super run down, but under the hood it's got some cool stuff. Right now I do have the engine and transmission mounted in the car. Some of the big projects that I have going on are getting electrical to everything. We're putting an OBD1 engine and ECU in an OBD0 car, so that presents some challenges. Thankfully, there's a lot of crossover with the plugs, like the alternator just plugs right in, various sensors and bits and bobs plug right in, but then again, there are some other things that are just absolutely missing. So electrical is one of the big projects. We're relocating the battery to the rear here because it is going to be a turbo car. EF engine bays are kind of notoriously small over on the passenger side, where a lot of intercooler tubing goes. So we are relocating the battery in the back here to make some more room. I already have suspension on the car, well, to some degree. We have coilovers on the car from K-Sport, so that should be super nice. We're going to be doing a front knuckle swap. I'm going to be changing the fuel pump to a larger pump because the stock HF pump is 30 years old at this point, over 30 years old, and it's probably not going to flow enough for us. Putting a newer engine and transmission in the car does present all sorts of different interesting challenges to overcome, one of which is the HF originally came with a cable actuated transmission, a clutch, and the motor that we're using is a D16 Z6, originally out of a 93 Honda Del Sol, or at least that's what platform I was originally building that engine for. And it does have a hydraulically actuated clutch, so we're going to be solving some problems there. We'll also be installing a catch can because we want to adequately ventilate the crankcase. But basically what I'm trying to say is we've got some really cool stuff that's going to go all over the car to make it as fun and safe as possible with what we have. And it's going to end up costing a little bit more than the $75 that I initially have into this car. But we're going to have fun with it along the way. I've already stripped out most of the interior of the car to reduce some weight. This is a super light chassis anyway. The EF chassis, and really this is an ED, but the EF chassis is pretty light. The CRX ranged in weight from somewhere in the 1800 range to 21, 22, maybe even 2300 pounds for the heavier later SI models. I think it was probably in the 2100 pound range. But this is the lightest EF generation CRX that was made. It was an 88 HF. So I think stock weight on this was going to be right at about 1,850 pounds, give or take a little bit. And so we are stripping out quite a bit of weight with the interior as well. but we'll likely be adding some of that back with other things. My intent is to put a roll cage in this car at some point, but really the goal in the next 2 months is to get this car from the point it is at right now to running and driving. I want this car to be definitely more track oriented, but still streetable, so that I can drive it to and from events legally. So we'll still have, I'm going to retain the dashboard. We're going to have stock seat belts, and anything else that the state of Texas decides that is required to be street legal, which hopefully is not that much. But again, definitely track oriented. The engine mounts are super stiff from Innovative Mounts. I think they're a 95A durometer, so it's really hard engine mount. So this thing's gonna, rattle and roll, and the suspension's gonna be really stiff, which should keep the car nice and planted. So definitely not your comfortable, super awesome grocery getter. It'll be a little challenging to drive, but I'm up for the task, and hopefully it's fun along the way. Don't get me wrong, I am definitely not a mechanic. This is not my profession. I thought about going into automotive work for a while, but decided that I would really rather keep it as a hobby and do other things. So, some things along the way might not be proper per se, but it'll get us where we need to go. I've worked on Hondas quite a bit. I've had the CRX, a Del Sol, CRV. I've had Chevys, a few different El Caminos, Suburban, Subarus, Infiniti, Volkswagens, all sorts of different cars and I've wrenched on most of them. So right now we're in a pretty small one-car garage at an apartment, so there's only so much that I can do here and now. The reason that my goal to get this car running in 2 months is that we're moving. We're moving into a little house probably about 30 minutes away from here. It's going to be a nice little 2-car garage, 2.25 technically, so it has a little space on the side for that I'm going to be using as a work area, as well as up in the front of the garage, and that will provide us a little bit more room and a little bit more space to do modifications on this car with. So really, I'm trying to do bare basics to get this thing running, maybe with a few fun projects along the way, but we'll see. This is an old project list for this car that I had going. I've been able to check off some of these things already, but there have been many more items added to this list since then. So we're not going to be working on this. We're going to be working based off of a new list. Some of the big items we're going to be touching on are brakes, the clutch, radiator install. We've got a black box delete hookup combined with a catch can setup that we're working on. Fuel pump, the OBD wire conversion, the O2 sensor, brake lights, headlights, cooling hoses, fuel injectors. We've already got a chipped P28 ECU, so we need to get a base tune for that. Downpipe, have to get the radiator fans hooked up. Need to get the shifter linker hooked up. Still have to source some seat bolts. The speedometer windshield is cracked. We're gonna have to swap out the axles. Intercooler tubing is going to be a big one. Get the intake manifold mounted up because that's not on the car yet. There's also going to be a lot of other little miscellaneous things that need to get done, but those are the big items. Oh, we've got an aero catch latch, hood latch system that we're going to be putting on the car. Going to be getting some sway bars on the car, as well as all sorts of other little things. So that's kind of the project list that we've got going on right now. There are a lot of things that are necessary to get this car running, and we'll be going through them, and I will be bringing you along for the ride with me. Wish me luck. I'll see you next time. Keep wrenching.